Are you a practitioner helping families plan for their futures? Do you specialise in trusts, inheritance and estate planning? If so, join STEP, the leading global network of trust and estate professionals. Whether you're an expert or just starting out, we're here for every stage of your career. Trial the STEP Journal for free at www.step.org/today and see what membership can offer you.
You're listening to the Today's Wills and Probate podcast, one of the leading sources of information for the wills and probate sector. Don't forget to subscribe and sign up to our free newsletter at todayswillsandprobate.co.uk and follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter.
Hello, welcome along to the latest Today's Wills and Probate podcast. I am delighted to be joined by Cara Doyle, a solicitor in the private wealth team, and Katie Howard, a partner in the family team at JMW Solicitors, both of you based in Manchester. Topic of discussion today is whether there's a gender bias in law, whether there are ceilings of women in law, and really talking about your experiences and route into law. Thank you so much both for joining the podcast. I'm going to throw to you, Cara, in the first instance, please, to tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do, please.
Yeah, sure. So like you said, I'm a solicitor in the private wealth department at JMW Solicitors. My role is quite varied in terms of the areas that I help my clients with. So it's mainly lifetime planning. So whether that's putting wills in place, putting trust structures in place, and also lasting powers of attorney. But also a bit of a nuanced area is charitable structures, but also personal injury trusts, as well as helping clients when their loved ones have passed away, so helping with probate matters. So yeah, very varied, but very enjoyable at the same time.
And over to you, Katie.
Thanks for having us today, David. So yeah, I'm a partner in our family team. Cara and I work quite closely together. A lot of the clients that we see will overlap in terms of the support we can give them. My team deals with divorce and the financial settlements that need to be resolved as a result of that. We also deal with wealth planning in terms of prenuptial agreements in advance of getting married. We deal with childcare arrangements and also in terms of occupation orders if somebody needs to get back into the house, non-molestation orders if somebody is subjected to some abusive behaviour. So again, it's quite a broad spectrum that we deal with in the family team.
I said that the topic of conversation is talking about some of your experiences in terms of how you got into the law and some of the challenges that you might have faced specifically as women in law, which I appreciate is probably improving, but interested to kind of get your take on that. And context here is that you've both been involved in the Women in Wills programme that today's media helps to organise. Katie, I'll come to you first. What was your inspiration for joining the law, and what was your route to qualification?
I am from Salford, born and bred. I was at a state school until the age of about 7 or 8. And in the last couple of years of my primary education, my parents needed an incentive actually to give up smoking. And the money they saved from that, they actually decided to send me to a private school for the last couple of years. So the people that I was exposed to from that age were very different to those that I'd been in company with previously. And one of the girls that I became friends with, her dad he worked for the CPS and he actually worked on the James Bulger case. And I just have a very vivid memory of being sat around their dining table and him talking about the work he was undertaking. And I was just pulled in straight away. And to be honest, from that day forward, I've been very tunnel vision as to I wanted to be a solicitor. I think initially everyone wants to be a criminal solicitor because you see the TV shows and that's what we think a solicitor does. You don't realise there's so many different areas. But that was it. And, my parents were amazing in supporting me throughout my education and my career to date. And then when I was at university, I just developed a love of family law and everything that goes with it. The work that we do is so varied. It enables us to speak with lots of different, people from different backgrounds. I think I found my place and not a criminal solicitor, thankfully. I don't think I could deal with the hours, but that was my route.
It's really interesting to kind of understand how people come about their discipline, if you like, because of course you get your training contract, you go and do various different seats, but you kind of found a love for family law right at the start of the journey.
I did, and actually it was I have taken the long way round with where I've ended up, because I actually, after I finished, I did the standard route of law degree straight through to the legal practice course, and then I worked for a company that had a legal advice team where we would advise trade union members on all areas of law. So I think that again helps focus, my passion into family law. I then actually qualified at a firm who specialises in personal injury and qualified into cost litigation, which, what I like about family law is the numbers side of it and analysing figures. Costs allow me to do that to an extent, but it was never where my heart lay. So it took me a long time to actually move into family law. I actually moved to another firm still working in costs litigation, and took the opportunity to speak with one of the partners in the team where I used to work at DWF. She gave me the opportunity to prove myself and why I wanted to work in family. And, I used my annual leave to go to family hearings so I could just get experience. And thankfully, after probably about 18 months, a job came up for someone that was newly qualified, which essentially I was, even though I was 4 years qualified at the time. It was a step back to be newly qualified, and then I moved across to JMW with the whole team in May 2018. So it's a long way round, but stubbornness.
Yeah,
People say that I'm determined. I think it's stubbornness, to be honest, but whatever it is, long way round, but it's the final destination. It's not how long it takes you to get there.
Absolutely. And Cara, have you kind of got a similar journey? What was your route to qualification and your inspiration for joining the law?
Yeah, so I'd say my route was fairly similar to Katie in terms of I always knew I wanted to do law since uni. So I guess it was my vision tunnel was going down that route, and I wasn't considering any other careers. In terms of how I got to the stage of becoming a solicitor, it was very tricky and took a number of years. And I think it's easy for people to forget just how long the process can be. And I guess when I was at uni doing my law degree at Leeds, I had people around me that had various family members or friends or contacts already in the legal industry, whereas I had no one. I went to a state school. I was the first person in my immediate family that went to university. I didn't have any connections whatsoever in the legal industry. So for me, it was really tough to try and get some legal work experience in the first place. And I felt as though I was competing against people that already had that work experience through their connections. So when they were applying for their training contract applications, they had a raft of experience that they could use for their application, whereas I was using my bartender job at Wetherspoons or Yates, and it wasn't quite the same. So in terms of the training applications, I found it tough. And as you may know, that there's not many spots on the training contracts either. They were usually about 6 people, maybe 3. So the competition was so high. So once I graduated from university, I took it upon myself to get some paralegal experience just so I could put something out there on my application. And I was fortunate enough that my paralegaling experience at Hull Dickinson included a client secondment, which helped me to stand out amongst other applicants, because it's not very typical that as a paralegal you get to go on a client secondment. So after many years of paralegaling, about 2 or 3 years, eventually managed to get a training contract at JMW and completed my training contract over 2 years. So again, more time spent trying to become a qualified solicitor, but very much worth it as you get experience in a wide range of different areas. So my first seat was in clinical negligence. Realised quite quickly that I wasn't a litigation lawyer. I was very nice to the opposite side and just thought, this isn't really for me. I want to try a non-contentious area. So that's where I did my second seat in private wealth and pretty much loved it immediately. I wasn't having to argue with the other side or work on cases for many months, sometimes years, dealing with the same people all the time. I was actually meeting loads of different people as our matters tend to conclude quite quickly, but I was also helping people by protecting their wealth for future generations, whilst also helping people during a difficult time of their life where they have lost a loved one and they just need someone to support them through the process. So I found it very fulfilling with the work that I was doing, and I wasn't getting that same fulfillment through a litigation seat. So at the end of my training contract, I was very fortunate that I was offered a job at the end. So qualified in September, just gone. So nearly a year qualified now, and still love it. And it's become a lot more varied than what I initially thought it was going to be. Whereas before it was very much looking at your wills and LPAs. I'm now dealing with setting up charitable structures, helping people with their inheritance tax planning since the budget changes last year. But yeah, still very fulfilling.
Given your sort of respective experiences and journeys into the law, do you believe that the legal sector has any issue with equality and diversity? Did you experience any of that through that journey, Katie?
I think I've actually been very fortunate in my journey because, I've only worked for 3 different firms, and all 3 have been headed, the departments that I've worked in have been headed up by women, and very strong, inspirational women. So I do think I have been very, very fortunate. I've also had supervisors that have been men, and also in my personal life, my dad was very supportive of me as his only daughter, but women in general. So I think in and out of my profession, I've not really experienced any gender bias directly. However, I am aware on the wider scale, I think there is still inequality in the legal sector, as there are across other sectors as well. I mean, I think our current department at JMW, there are 2 heads of our team, a male and a female. It is predominantly a female-led team. However, there's no difference in the support we receive. We're encouraged to go for anything we want in terms of promotions, in terms of networking, any opportunities. It's equal across the board. So I haven't experienced it directly, but that I'm not naive enough to think it's not still ongoing, because I know it is.
I guess to a large degree, there's an element of what the firm's culture is and whether the firm itself, is particularly proactive with some of that. I mean, what about yourself, Cara? Have you kind of found that there's the legal sector culture is changing around this issue?
Definitely. And I think in the past, when the gender pay gap report was released, I think it made everyone aware that there was actually an issue. And since then, from what I can see, I think there's a lot of law firms that are focusing on that, trying to reduce that gender pay gap and making sure that there is equality within the workforce. I think as well that COVID has helped with things like flexible working. So whereas before it might have been usually the women staying at home, looking after the kids, working part-time, maybe not getting the same experience as someone working on a full-time basis, or not having to take leave for childcare. By having that flexibility, it allows both the mum and the dad to stay at home, look after the kids. They've both got the same equality in terms of the opportunity to develop their careers, and not having to take, or one person having to take time off whilst the other one goes to work. So I do think that since COVID in particular, we are seeing greater equality by having that flexibility. I think in the legal sector generally, I think there are still issues with things like pat leave, for example. Pat leave just isn't as long as mat leave, and it can lead to that assumption where the men still go to work, the women stay at home and look after the kids, and that year off, it can affect their development, because then they're essentially a year behind. I know people try not to see it that way, but it is the case. If I took a year off, I'm going to have a year's less experience than other people in the department that are men that don't take mat leave. So I think as a legal system as a whole, we're experiencing that issue where we don't have that quality between mat leave and pat leave, and what that could actually lead to in the future. But I do think there have been significant improvement in the industry as a whole by including that flexibility, but we're not at the end of it yet. There's still room for improvement.
I guess to some extent, there's an argument about how far it is feasible to go, in terms of the roles of men and women, particularly in bringing up children as well. But if I come back to the point that you made about COVID, I mean, Katie, is that a change that you've seen in your career, that COVID is kind of a marker point in terms of firm flexibility? I mean, we're talking at a point in time when there's a lot of firms that are starting to require people to be back in the office much more regularly, in some cases 5 days a week.
Yeah, and I think obviously it was, we were learning as we went along with everybody across all sectors. We had to just play it by ear in terms of what worked best for us as a firm and as a team. I think we have certainly taken on board the need to increase flexibility across the firm. I do think there is still a lot of benefit to people being in the office, particularly where we're based and the work that Cara and I do. It is important to be out and about and seeing people physically. However, realistically, we have had to shift towards a more flexible working pattern. So I think, certainly from my perspective, I know I can be a lot more efficient if I need to get my head down and work through something. Working from home's great. I don't have children, but if you do have children, it's a lot easier to be able to fit in your out of work life around working from home. Equally, I like being in the office and being around people. So I think we have definitely got a good balance at JMW. I think there is still that perception, and I don't think it's not specific to the legal sector or any sector. It's society, that if a child needs picking up from school, for example, it tends to be mum that goes to do that as opposed to dad. I think there needs to be some changes on a wider basis as to how society see parenting and the split of parenting. I'm certainly not one to talk to anyone about being a parent. I don't envy anyone. It's a very, very difficult job, as well as having a full-time job or career. So I think it has helped towards that to an extent, but I think as I say, that I think there's wider issues that need to be addressed and a change in perception. And it's the saying that women can have it all, but not all at once. And I do think that is really true, unless you're sharing that care of the children and responsibilities with a partner, a teammate.
We were saying before we started recording this podcast, I feel woefully underqualified to talk about this on the basis that I'm male. But what does the firm do that is particularly proactive? We talked about the fact that it's a culture at a firm, I suppose, very largely that dictates the success or not of an equality and diversity policy. But does JMW or have you got experiences of working in organisations that have got a very proactive attitude and approach toward it? Cara?
I think for me, I'm wanting to get promoted soon. So for me, it's important to get steps in place to help with that promotion. And we've got two heads of teams, one male, one female, and they've been very proactive since I've qualified to make sure that I'm getting everything noted in preparation for that promotion application. So I guess it's encouraging anyone, no matter what your gender is, male or female, knowing that you're as well prepared as you can be for that promotion application, and encouraging you and trying to find ways to develop your experience and develop your skill set for getting to that stage. So for me, I've found that they're not distinguishing between men and women when it does come to things like promotion. They're encouraging everyone to do the best that they can. But not only that, they encourage me to go to different events such as the Women in Wills. So that was something that a colleague of mine in the team told me about and encouraged me to go. And I'm glad that I went, because it meant that I was meeting up with other female lawyers attending the event. I think it was in London last year. And I just felt so empowered and encouraged to just do the best that I can, to keep going, to address any setbacks that arise, such as we've talked about parental responsibilities. So if I experience one day any setbacks with that in the future, I know that I can overcome it. It is a challenge looking after children and working at the same time, but I know I can get through it. And it's just feeling empowered after speaking with all these other female professionals at events like that.
Vacancy Legal Recruitment, a refreshingly unique and personal talent agency developed specifically for legal. Dedicated to the sector and with extensive experience working across legal services and legal technology, we bridge the gap between your requirements and top-tier legal talent. Get in touch today and say hello at vacancy.co.uk.
sorry, just to add on to that as well, in our team in particular, as Cara's talking about the opportunities for promotion, we have 2 partners in our team that are mums. We have 2 associates in our team that were promoted whilst they were on maternity leave. So there's, I think wider than the gender differences, JMW as a firm promotes people based on what they bring to the team, and it's across the board in terms of the values. It's from any background. It's not just a specific of are you male, are you female. The opportunity's there for everyone, and it's more about you as a person and how you work and how you want to progress your career at that firm and in terms of the values that they hold.
And you as a leader in an organisation, Katie, have got to take a proactive role in this as well and take on that responsibility.
Yeah, exactly. And I think from the moment I moved to JMW from DWF, it's the firm that I knew I wanted to be at for the long haul. I am from a working class background, exactly what Cara said earlier. I didn't have anybody in my family that had been to uni before. I didn't have anyone in the legal industry that I could lean on for support or contacts. The only reason my interest was piqued was because of this friend's parent, and it's something that I really, really value in my role, is being able to develop people from different backgrounds and have not been given the opportunities that other people have been fortunate to have. And I really, really do thrive from that. And we as a firm really encourage that.
In all of this context, I sit here, as the Secretariat for Women in Wills as well, and so I speak with a little bit of bias, but equally, is there a need for organisations that are dedicated to a particular gender in this day and age, or is having a group dedicated to women almost out of date in 2025, Cara?
Well, just from going to that Women in Wills event, I think before I went to that event, I thought actually it was quite outdated. Are we making it clear that there is a clear distinguishment between men and women, and that's just highlighting that, when actually it's not the case at all? It was an avenue for women to discuss different issues that they were experiencing at the time, issues that if they discussed with a man they might not understand, but having different women in the room that you could discuss that with was really helpful. So whilst I went into it thinking, oh, this might be a bit outdated, do we really need this? Actually, I do think it is still a necessity, because it allows that support mechanism for women on different issues that just women may be experiencing.
I think I would agree with that as well, because one of the ways in which I suppose I have experienced some form of bias is in networking opportunities. When I first moved into family law, I was encouraged to build a network, which is part of the reason why I love this area of law. You just meet so many different people, so many different events you can go to and groups you can become a part of. And I did find that where there were mixed events, it did tend to be, particularly in the finance sector, it did tend to be heavily male dominated. And as a younger woman walking into that room, I did feel it was very difficult to infiltrate that, if you like. And I think men and women just network very, very differently. They just have different approaches to it. And I think you just naturally, with women's events, it feels a lot more comfortable. You've got a lot more in common, and you can be a bit more yourself. And I think you get a lot more out of it. So I have the same concern sometimes. Do we need to be specifying women's only events? But I think there's a lot to be said about them.
We're fast coming towards the end of the discussion. I just kind of wanted to end really on some of your own ambitions and aspirations. You've touched, Cara, on the fact that you're looking to develop your own career. What are your ambitions going forward? And do you kind of see that there are any barriers to achieving those ambitions?
Yes, so one of the things I'm currently doing is I'm enrolled onto STEP. So after completing the STEP course, you essentially get an extra accreditation for being a private wealth solicitor, an accreditation which we're finding a lot of clients are looking for. So at this current moment in time, we've got our partners and a solicitor in the team that are STEP qualified, but we're trying to, build upon that. So it's a 2-year course. with 4 different modules, completed one of the modules already, enrolled into the second one, which is starting tomorrow. But yes, that's one thing that I'm immediately doing. But as well as the STEP course, I'm also looking to develop new relationships and new work for the firm as a whole. So one thing I'm also focused on is developing our network in Leeds. So currently we've got offices in Manchester, London and Liverpool, but no presence in Leeds at the moment. So I saw an opportunity there and I've just gone for it. So every month I'm going over to Leeds, building up a network of clients out there. And it's just finding opportunities that other people may not be addressing. So using those opportunities, yes, developing new areas of work, but also building upon the firm's client base in the hope that will then help me with things like my promotion application in the future.
And what about yourself, Katie?
I think for me, I am now in a position where I feel that I'm able to make a bit of a difference in my team, in my department. My values align completely with JMW's in terms of how we make the route into a legal career accessible for people from various backgrounds. There's different routes. We've had people in our team that started off in the post room and they then became paralegals in our team. We've had paralegals that have taken the long route through to being a solicitor. So for me, to be part of a firm that encourages that is, it brings a lot of value to my career. I think for me, I want to just continue nurturing the talent that we have and ensuring that people are given the opportunities that they deserve. The opportunities are there for them. And I do take a nurturing approach. I'm certainly not one for, in the deep end, sink or swim. I really enjoy taking on that role of supporting people in their own careers, because it's taken me a long time to get to where I am. And it's been a journey, but I've learned a lot along the way, and I want to give people that same opportunity.
In the same sort of context as women in wills and women only networking groups still are important and have a place. Do you or does the firm, or do you believe that there should be more positive, almost discrimination, this idea that we should give more opportunities to women or to certain racial groups in order to support them over other people, or is the legal sector actually quite good at promoting on merit?
From my perspective, I don't think we should have events held more for women than for men. I think the importance is having the equality of opportunity, so that if there are events out there, both men and women have access to those events and are both aware of them. I think if we're creating more opportunities for women over men, it can create other issues. So it could lead to a bit of a backtrack, whereas we're trying to not create that division, whereas creating more events for women over men could still create that division. So I think just as long as we've got the equality of going to these events, we're both made aware of them, we've both got the same opportunities, I think that's what's important.
I don't think anybody should be given any preference based on sex, race. It has to be on merit. And, I think we go down a dangerous path if we do start saying, well, this person should get the job because they're a woman, or this person should get the promotion because of their race, gender, whatever it may be. It has to be done on merit, the right person for the job. There is still not an equal representation in senior positions across the legal sector. Is that because women aren't being given the opportunities, or because women are not right for the role? So I think there has to be, we have to be careful that we're not, as Cara says, we're not pushing women as they have to be given roles, they have to be given these opportunities. It's very much about equality for everyone across the gender and race spectrum.
I often say that trying to talk about some of these topics, which are often quite difficult and very detailed, over the course of a 30-minute podcast is quite challenging. So I applaud you both for joining and giving it a really good go, and having an interesting discussion at the very least. It sounds as though you two are both in a firm that's really proactive in terms of the way it behaves. The legal sector more generally, I believe, has still got some work to do on that front, but we're definitely moving in the right direction.
Definitely.
Thank you so much to you both for joining the podcast, sharing your insight. Thank you to Katie.
Yeah, thanks for having me, David. It's been really great chatting, and it's obviously an important issue, and Cara and I certainly support each other in our careers, and we will continue to do so between each other and our department and the wider firm.
Thank you to Cara.
Thank you very much for having me. Like Katie said, really, it's an important discussion and one that we don't want to just let it settle, I guess. There's still improvement in the legal industry as a whole, and I hope having this discussion has addressed what needs to be improved, but also showing that there already has been a lot of great improvement already, and we should be thankful for that, because it's definitely the industry we work in now is definitely different to how it used to be.
Today's Wills and Probate podcast is available on your preferred podcast provider. It's also available on today'swillsandprobate.co.uk. My thanks to Cara and to Katie. Thank you as ever for listening, and we'll see you again soon.
You're listening to the Today's Wills and Probate podcast, one of the leading sources of information for the wills and probate sector. Don't forget to subscribe and sign up to our free newsletter at today'swillsandprobate.co.uk and follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter.